Welcome to the Earth Science Education Channel, making sense of the world, one mystery at a time.
Hi there, this is Dr. K with Metropolitan State University of Denver, and today we're going to talk about expedition travel. We are doing every now and then international field trips, and we're going to some fantastic places. We have been through the Alps several times. We have been through Germany. We have visited the volcanoes in Italy. And today I would like to talk a few minutes about how to get reasonably good flights, how to research flights, what's the best. Am I just going for our international field trips? Am I staying a little longer and make an extended vacation out of it? And I need to say something from the get-go. There are a lot of YouTube colleagues that have already produced tons of videos of how to make flights actually quite reasonable and cheap and how to get connection. I just want to add a few things to that may not be that evident. So let's go ahead and check this one out. So first of all, finding flights, it's more than just cost. And I want to point this out. Many websites don't. They just go for the cheapest flight possible and people get really excited. But it's more than just cost. And here we go. Here's some things you should consider. Number one is convenience versus cost. You can get some incredible deals, but if you don't like hanging around for hours on end on airports or making this very uncomfortable with traveling without luggage or something like this, it might be more convenient to pay a little extra and then be at the destination you want to be and then come home when you want to come home and not have to hang around in very uncomfortable places. So we want to consider that. Also, if you have flexible travel dates, if your travel dates are not fixed, you might get some incredibly better deals than if you need to leave at a certain day and be back at a certain day. And we'll discuss both of those. What you need to realize, if you are flexible with the travel dates and you have to add a few days here and there, you then need to add lodging. And that may end up in a hurry and may not save you this much unless you really want to visit this place and explore on your own. And then it becomes almost like an already paid for vacation, since you have booked a flight for a specific purpose. The purpose is done, and then you have a few days for yourself to explore and enjoy things you enjoy. There's also these dreaded nickel and dime add-ons from airlines. You all have been there. These low-cost airlines often nickel and dime you to death with every meal, every internet connection, every suitcase, everything you want costs extra. And sometimes not just a little bit extra, sometimes a lot of extra. And you need to be aware of this one. They bait you basically with a super cheap fare, and then they get you with all these nickel and dime add-ons. The timing, when to buy. This has been a big discussion, and there used to be a sweet window, but right now airfares in such a flux. It's like the stock market. Yeah, sometimes you can predict when and when not to buy. I will give you some examples of how you can figure this one out. It's not guaranteed. It's really a gamble. You might get a better deal, and then sometimes a better deal may be not as big as you expect. Just a few dollars, and you're going, whoopee, I could have avoided all the stress and bought it when I was searching. Something else I would like to discuss that often other websites will not mention is how you book. Are you going to use booking discounters, which often knock off $100, sometimes $200 from the actual airfare? Or are you going to buy directly from the airline, which is usually a little more? We'll talk about this. And at the end, there is also something called student airfare discounts. I'll show you in one example how this may work. There may be huge savings, sometimes not that big. What I found out, if you fly one way, the savings can be significant. If you fly a round trip, maybe not that much, but it also depends on the destination. And it's not a bad idea to check with airlines and asking them, do you give student airfare discounts? And some will, some won't. Okay, so let's get started. What do we need? How do we do some research? That's basically what it is, scientific research about airfare. So here's some tools you will need. Number one, a spreadsheet is incredibly helpful. You can take notes, collect your data, and then do a real comparison of what the actual cost will be. Number two is you need to have some kind of a searchable flight database. Well, thanks to the internet, there are a lot of searchable flight databases available, some more convenient than others. I show you the granddaddy, maybe the one that a lot of people use even on other websites, other YouTube websites. There are others available, but this one is a go-to, and I didn't find too many difference between this site I'm going to show you and some others. And it takes some time. So take some time. It's not something where you go and sit for 15 minutes in front of the computer and then get a fantastic deal. If you want a fantastic deal, you may have to spend several hours and compare and contrast and see what's out there and what's available. So airfare finders. How do I find airfares? There are some websites available and you can actually search the internet for cheap airfares. What I found, there is a go-to site that has a lot of features that are really, really helpful if you want to find a good airfare, and that's Google Flights. So what does Google Flights look like? When you open the page, you get something like this. Lots of buttons on the side. As you can see here, the vertical buttons: travel, explore, things to do, flights, and so forth. And you also have then your fields to populate. And so I want to show an example how this works. And what we need to do first is we need to get a baseline information. As in science, we want to have a standard we can compare things to. So let's book a regular flight. Let's search for a regular flight from point A to point B. And with the dates we are supposed to be there and with the dates we return, and this gives us sort of a price we can then compare everything else to. I'm flying out of Denver here, and we're gonna put in our destination. In this case, the airport in Nuremberg. It's not a hub, a little bit off the beaten path, and we need to of course put the exact dates in when we need to arrive there and when we plan of flying back out. So a calendar comes up. What's neat about the calendar, once you click on it, you already see the flights, the cheapest flights flying out on that day. And you can see in March it's pretty good, but we need to fly in June. So I move forward and you can see that the prices are going to be populated, and it of course gets more and more expensive. But we want to fly out on the 15th, so we're going to put this one in. Keep in mind that these prices do fluctuate, and if you come back the next day, they may be a little less. Next day, they may be a little more. So you need to try it a few times. So we're going to fly out June 15th. We're going to return back, and now it's going to repopulate again what it would cost together with the return flight. We would like to go home on the 1st, and then see, well, not a big price difference, but let's just assume the 1st right here. So that gives us now a baseline. That is my calendar done. And now it will populate the flights, and we can now see all kinds of interesting things. So a departing flight leaving Denver at 4:10 p.m., arriving the next day at 1:45 p.m., about a 13.5-hour flight, or a travel duration. Not the flight is that long, but looks like you have a stopover in Munich where you need to change vehicles. So that's the price right now. There's another one a little bit more expensive. Let's select this one as a departing flight, and now it should populate our return flights. And we can see this one here first. It's at 7:45 a.m. in the morning. But what if I need to leave in the afternoon? Well, let's use a later one. Maybe this one. Price difference is not that big. Would like to leave a little later. So now we have a baseline price, $1,571, that we can now enter in our spreadsheet and use this as our comparison. Okay, we found a flight. Now, flights are in flux. And as I'm producing this video, the price you may have seen in the video may already be different than the prices I found a day later. So they go up and down, they go sideways. There is no magic bullet when prices are doing this one. But let's kind of populate our spreadsheet. So we have a spreadsheet here. Excel works pretty good. I assume here you're familiar with how to operate a spreadsheet. And what you can do with this, several cool functions on it. You can auto add things together so you don't have to sit there with a calculator. But we can record the basis. So we found a carrier. We said Lufthansa was pretty good. We're leaving Denver on 6:15, arriving on 6:16. You can see this when arrival time the next day. And this is then our return flight from Nuremberg at a certain time, flying back home. And the price, as I said, the price when I searched was $1,571 at that time. Luggage, the one carry-on, so I'm making some assumptions here. We are traveling with one carry-on, was free. There's no incidentals, no lodging, no transfer we have to pay since we're not staying over anywhere. And there's my base price that I can now compare all my other airfares to, that I will find as I do that. All right, so what else can Google Flights do? It has some really unique functions that you may not be familiar with. Some of you may have tried this. There is a button there on the bottom of the input called Date Grid. All right, this one right there. And if you click on Date Grid, something interesting happens. You leave the flight as is, Denver to Nuremberg, June 15th, July 1st. And there is the date grid that will all of a sudden show. Now, how does a date grid work? Well, on the top row, you have your departure dates. And on the side row, the right side there, you have your return dates. And you can see leaving on June 15th and returning on July 1st costs me $1,616. However, if I can postpone my return for one day, I'm now down to $1,554. By the way, this date grid flags the cheapest prices. It has this little symbol, as you can see, a little symbol there, 1,554. Yeah, a good $60 or so cheaper if I just fly a day later. Okay, so I can save if I have a little bit flexibility. You can move the date grid up and down and then find prices that will fit you better. But remember, then you have to pay for lodging and stay and food that may not be included in your original travel packet. So here we go, lodging, longer stay. Now with this cheaper flight, we're going to stay a day longer, which means now I'm responsible for getting some lodging. And I have tried this for this day, trying to find the cheapest lodging again, and now it comes to convenience. Am I okay to dorm with other people, youth hostel style? It has its advantages and disadvantages. Advantage, obviously, as you look at the prices for one night, is the price. They can be incredibly inexpensive. However, inconveniences, you share the room with others. May not be a bad idea. A lot of my travel students make friends this way. Internationally, we remember some of our students made friends with people from Sweden or Norway that they stayed with and stayed up and went out in the evening and exchanged their lives and their lifestyles. And It was great. But okay, let's just stick with it. Let's say you are okay with staying cheap. Of course, if you want your own private room, it costs more and you have to add the higher cost. Again, price versus convenience. Here we go. Look at the review score. I use booking.com. It's a fairly reasonable site. It gives you a great overview and you can compare actually places right there in the city with a map. Shows you what is available, what's not available. The review scores are helpful. So if you get a 6.9, which is not too bad, it's still a good score. It's almost 7. But there may be some issues, and it can be something as simple. This one is next to the train station in Nuremberg. The noise, you have a lot of rowdy people hanging around the train station, and so it might get a little bit noisy at this point. The next one is actually really good, very good. 8.5 was a review score, much higher. Also a dorm room, costs just $3 more, but maybe for the amenities and that you get, that might be the better deal. Look at this one, has free cancellation and you don't need to make a prepayment, so you don't have to commit. If you find something cheaper later, you can always unbook without paying a dime. This is pretty cool, and you can just grab it right now before it's gone, for example. All right. Also need to realize there's no breakfast, so you are on your own feeding yourself. Some come with breakfast, this one doesn't. Okay, and very important, especially if you don't have a rental car, this one says subway access, so you have access to public transportation, which is fairly inexpensive in Europe, and that will help you get around and see sights, or get from your place of lodging to the airport, for example, for very reasonable cost. Okay, let's enter this in the price comparison. I'm doing this here. We're having actually the same flight. We're just flying home a day later, and you can see there's a new price, 1,554. So it is cheaper. Also, luggage. My model says 1 carry-on. But now we need to add incidentals such as food, right? You want to eat or snack, and you're lodging for 33, and the cheapest one, and maybe $6 for transfer for public transportation or something like that. Okay, you add all of this up, and flying a day later, yeah, you save some, depending how frugal you are. And also, if you want to see a little bit more of the city, you have a few more hours, you can go around and go sightseeing. If you want that, then the price is not too bad. But if you want to get back home on time early, that difference of $13 may not make or break the bank. Well, something to consider. Okay, so what else can you do? I looked at some departing flights here. Again, our model says Denver to Nuremberg. I have June 15th, July 1st. I put my flights in. You can see what I have found. And now I'm going to use a different button. There's a very, very exciting button, an additional feature on Google Flights, and that is the Explore button. Now here's what will happen if you click on the Explore button. And Google Flight now gives us a map of various destinations in Europe. It will populate here with the prices to various airports around Europe for the same flight, dates that we have picked to go into Nuremberg. And you can see that several places are a bit cheaper to fly into. Nuremberg was $1,600. Here's one interesting one, Galway in Ireland for $1,076. And we go, wow. And then, of course, the question arises, how do I then get from that destination to Nuremberg? This is where I need to be. Well, you have several options depending where flying into. You can use another airline. They have several economy airlines, some with incredibly low prices that fly you to the final destination. But we also have, especially when we land on the continent, we have trains, we have buses, and other public transportation. They're quite good. But right now I see the cheapest one into Galway. Let's zoom in here a little bit. Now if we zoom in, we can see it's actually to Dublin for 1,076. Now this is a good price for the same dates. All I need to do now is need to get a connection flight from Dublin to Nuremberg, and then back on my return date from Nuremberg to Dublin again. Let's see if this works, and then we'll do some additional searches. So if I click on this button here, we now actually have Dublin, same time, for significantly less. Okay. Using the Explore button, we found out that flying not into Nuremberg, but into Dublin can be a bit cheaper. Now you may ask, like mentioned, how do I get from Dublin now to Nuremberg to my destination? Well, we'll figure this one out, and we do this in a moment. But right now you can see my prices are way lower. Going from Denver to Dublin. Okay, now the first one comes up 1,076, and you may think, okay, I'm going to grab this one. This is so much cheaper, almost $500 less. Watch it, watch it, watch it. First of all, look at the total flight time. 31 hours and 55 minutes. Whoa, wait a minute. The second one says 11 hours and 20 minutes. Which one is true? Well, with the first one, you have layover in Reykjavik in Iceland for 22 hours, almost a whole day. Now, if you ever wanted to see Iceland, that might be the flight to grab. You may have to go a day early, since you see the +2. That means you need to add 2 days. So you're not arriving on time. You would not be arriving on the 16th, but on the 17th, which may be too late. But just saying, you might need to fly a day early. But if you want to see Iceland, this may be something to grab. If you don't, then you hang around for 22 hours at the airport, which may not be much fun. Just saying it. So the second one is a tad better. We are not having a huge layover. Only 1 hour and 30 minutes in Reykjavik in Iceland, and then you have your continuing flight for about $100 more. So this may be the one to take. Okay, going to our flight matrix again, flying into Dublin. I see, well, 1,076 for the picked days, but look at that. There are some flights that are incredibly cheap. I see one for 974, but I clicked on that one, and again, it's the 2-day thing with the 22-hour layover in Reykjavik. Gets us into our destination 1 day too late if we need to be there on the 16th. But something not much more expensive are these $995 flights, right? If we want to be there, we can return a little bit later than our July 1st. These $995 flights, and there you go with American. There is again a 12-hour stop, kind of expensive, in Orlando, where you hang around for 12 hours, but you are getting a cheaper deal with that one. Yeah, remember, this 12 hours 55 minutes layover in Orlando may not be the best thing if you like convenience. Hey, there's a British Airways flight, just costs a few bucks more, $998. And look at this, flight time is much less. British Airways, so this might be the one to use for a round trip and would get me there actually just a day later. So if we use this one, Denver to Dublin, what all is included? Well, basic economy gives me the $998 price, and you see I have a seat selection for free, and get a standard seat. I cannot change my ticket, and if I want to check a bag, it's $150. What if I don't want to check a bag? Well, I have my carry-on. It's free, so this is cool. if I just travel with a carry-on. Now, how do I get from Dublin then to Nuremberg? And there are some cheap discounter airlines. One of them is Ryanair, and I try to search them, and you can see the following. There is a Ryanair flight on June the 15th from Dublin to Nuremberg, and a Ryanair flight back to Dublin from Nuremberg on July 2nd. For a total cost of $97. Well, this is not bad. I can do this. You have to pay for carry-on. I tried booking that flight, and let me show you in a second what the carry-on price will be. $26 per leg. So on the flight there and on the flight back, $52 total for your carry-on bag. Not too bad. We have to add this one to the 97 to get the total price. Okay, now I have a few more extra days, and I need to get some lodging. Actually, one night in Dublin on my way there, one night in Nuremberg on my way there, one night in Nuremberg on my return, and 2 nights in Dublin on my return. Now, if you ever wanted to visit Ireland, that might be the flight to book and see where we can stay cheaply and see Dublin and the surrounding areas. It might be cool. If not, then that will be a cost you just have to absorb. But I did some checking. What are some cheap accommodations, again, in a dormitory? I try to be as cheap as possible. In Dublin. So on the 614, I found one for $38 in a bunk bed. Again, this one includes actually breakfast. This is cool. And it has a free cancellation. In Nuremberg, I found one that very nice, 36 again on my return. In Nuremberg again, 36 staying at the same place. And again, two nights in Dublin in another hostel, $79 for 2 nights. Not for one night, that's not for one night, that's for both nights in a dormitory. Well, if I added all of these extra lodgings together, I need to slab $189 on my trip. Let's see what we get. So I have done that. So British Airways, American Airlines, it's my flight out, as you can see in the spreadsheet. My return flights. I also put Ryanair on this one. And so is my price, $998 for the flight across the Atlantic, $97 for my connecting flight. My luggage is $52 on Ryanair's, free on my transatlantic flight. For incidentals, I threw $25 in for food or whatever you need. And then for lodging, as I said, we added everything up, $189, and maybe transfer fees. You might need an Uber or a taxi or public transportation. Again, that can be much cheaper, but now I have a flight price total of $1,386. Well, that is not too bad, especially if I want to see Ireland, and that's now included in the trip for a lower price. But you need a little bit more time. So from the 6/13 getting there and getting home on July 4th. Now, there are many airlines that give actually student discounts. They don't advertise this on their main pages. You really have to look, student discounts, look at the airline. Sometimes you have to call a number. Sometimes you can calculate it. I tried this with Lufthansa. Their project is called Lufthansa Generation Fly. And some of those savings can be rather amazing. Others, not quite as wild. But you need to be a qualifying student to get these students discounts. Here is what Lufthansa says very similar to other airlines. Number one, be age 16 and above. So you need to be able to travel by yourself. Be currently enrolled in an institution of higher education. That's fairly easily done as well, because you have a student ID, and most of you are going to be college students. And you need an official student email address, which usually comes with your enrollment in a college. So with that, Lufthansa Generations Fly can give you a discount. Now let's see how good the discount actually is. Or are there any benefits to those discounts? Here is what qualifying students receive. You often get your check-in luggage for free for this one. That's a little perk. Remember, you had to pay for this extra. You can rebook and refund, and you get special discounts. So there's some perks that you get with the student discounts that you don't get with the regular ticket purchase. But let's see if these perks make it worthwhile for the flight. So what I did is I went to Lufthansa Generations Fly. I entered all the data. We're flying from Denver to Nuremberg again. Travel date 6/15, return date 7/1, one adult, and then I let the computer do its fantastic search. And it gave me some prices. If you scroll down, it says economy right there. And two prices stood out as being fairly cheap. Here they come, enlarge them. 610 to 145 plus 1 day. Both have the same price. And one gets there 2 hours later. And the price may floor you. What, $718? I'm going to do this. But wait. Warning sign. This is per leg, not the complete flight. Because what Lufthansa tries to do with student discounts, they appeal to travelers, to students who want to spend a whole summer, like in Greece or somewhere. And so they are set up to actually sell single tickets, not round-trip tickets. And so this is the price for one leg, $718. Now we need another price for the cost of coming back home. So I tried to choose this one. This is a one leg flight. We did that. And here's my return flight. And the return flight is $873. So we need to add those two together. And if I did this, my total price with student discount is $1,591.55. Supposedly with all the taxes. Now again, if you fly maybe a day later, you might get a better price. You may not. How does it compare to our regular prices and tickets? So I have now added these student fares, and you can see them. Doesn't matter. I tried it with flying a day later. It doesn't matter. It's $1,591.55 compared to $1,616. So we're saving about $25. Not the world. Not something to get super excited about. If you stay in an extra day, then I threw the lodging in again, and it actually costs now a little more. You would have been better off than buying the regular flight from 6:15 to 7:02, and actually would have come out cheaper, like $30 cheaper. So it is good to have the spreadsheet so I can do a comparison right away, as you can see right here, and don't have to rely on your memory on doing those things. Okay, so warning again, may not be cheaper. Sometimes it is. Well, you can try and play around with various dates and iterations of the whole thing. Okay, when should you buy the ticket? Oh my goodness, that used to be much easier. Now it's a mess. As I said, I tried to produce this video over 3-4 days. And every time I do it, there's a few dollars in price change, a little bit up, a little bit down, a little bit sideways. So how do you predict the airfare? Well, Google Flights has a button. It's kind of a green, yellow, and red button you can click. And it gives you a little analysis. Are you getting a halfway decent deal? And so with our 1,554 flight that we are playing around with, they say it's actually low, $398 cheaper than usual for that time of travel. Now, it's not usual for any time. It's for that time of travel we have chosen. If you can fly on other dates, these low travel dates when nobody else travels, and you can get a way lower price, like $500 or $600 round trip, but unfortunately not during the summer. So on Google Flights helps you a little bit to see, okay, I'm in the ballpark and I'm a little bit low, maybe I should grab that. There's another site out there, it's called airhint.com. You can try them. I don't know how reliable they are. Some people swear by it and says, yes, I waited and got a better flight, but they do something like this. I entered our data, again, flying out on the 15th and then returning on the 2nd. It quoted me a price of $1,473. Now, before I go on, I could not find that price. I can click on it and, book now, and it gave me, and it was way more expensive, and I was so where can you get this price? It claims it found it with United. I couldn't find it. That was kind of strange. But to let you know what that 65% price drop chance may mean, here is their explanation. They say their algorithm, their math algorithm predicts that you will have at least one price drop between now and departure. So, and if you are flexible, wait or consider alternative departure dates with lower prices. 65, not that red hot. And I need to warn you, that lower price may not be significantly lower. Maybe just $5 or $10, which may not be the aggravation. Now, if you're thinking about it's going to drop by $700 or so, forget it. It's not going to happen. It's not going to cut the price in half. But sometimes you get a better deal for $100 or so if you wait longer. Very difficult to predict airfares. It is like playing the stock market. You can predict it a little bit, but maybe you need to research some more internet sites that are trying to do this, and they're few and far and in between, and some try to upsell you or make a quick buck. Okay, now sometimes you see an incredibly low price even on Google Flights, and then if you go to the booking just below, you see that this low price is not available from the airline itself, but from some of the other, what we call airfare brokers or airfare discounters. Here's just a sampling of some. And here is my little story. As long as there is no glitch, you don't have to change the flight, you don't miss it, you don't have to any lost luggage, any of those things, they can be reasonable. For some of them, I've seen in reviews, we booked the flight to them, came to the airport, and the airline refused, saying, we have no record of you. And they paid the money and took forever for them to get the money back. I would highly recommend, if you go with a discounter, which can be sometimes as $200 cheaper as what the airline charges, I would do a site review of those, like SiteJabber is an example that reviews those, and people write their experiences. I think, and don't quote me on this one, I think last time I did this, ASAP Tickets got some really great reviews. Others, mixed, depending which leg you're flying and where you're flying in and out of. So be aware of these airfare brokers. They can give you a good deal, but if anything goes wrong and you need to change something, the airline will point you back to your broker and that they need to fix it. Our hands are tied because you did not buy the ticket from us. The ease of mind, just buying it directly from the airline might be better. Now, I would highly recommend you go to some YouTube colleagues, do airfare tips, or some websites, type this in the Google search engine and find some other deals. Now, there's a lot of myths out there, I need to tell you. Some did not pan out to be correct. For example, the myth is that you should use an incognito browser, so the airline doesn't know who you are and where you're browsing from. And otherwise, if you look at the same flight over and over and over again, the price will go up. This has been dispelled, this myth. There are some airline airfare researchers, and they say we searched the same flight 300 times without being in an incognito window, and there was absolutely no fare change over 2-3 days. We got the same price. So this myth has been dispelled. There's some other myths around, like buying at a certain time, some tricks that do not work out. There's one little trick that can work sometimes, because airlines adjust their prices of the places where you purchase a ticket from. United States may cost a little more than when you, for example, buy a ticket in Great Britain, and you can do this with a VPN, a virtual private network, that you spoof a IP address out of Great Britain, and then you might save a few bucks. And there are some YouTube hacks available how you can try this. Don't know if it's worth the time and the aggravation. Anyway, good luck finding a good deal. I think you can, and with some research and some skills, you will probably land a very reasonable price. Say bye till next time.